Chapter 30. I and Jay. As Ina stepped off the last stepping stone onto the inner beach of the atoll, she spared a glance toward the lagoon. She saw the dark forms of the Naga exiting the canal and entering the lagoon. Far more of them than she wanted to see. They're in the lagoon! Run, humans! She realized she had called the humans again and cursed. Drown it. The humans were moving fast, but the Naga were already exiting the water, moving to intercept their path. Anguis Naga, their powerful tails snaking along the ground, propelling them over the sand. They were armed with spears, harpoons, and nets. Ina wasn't sure they would make it out even if they made it to the raft. The raft was slow enough, the Naga would have no problem catching up to it in the ocean. Maybe that would buy us time to convince them not to kill everyone. Obbs wouldn't have said he negotiated for safe passage if it wasn't true. The idiotic humans had defiled the tidal womb. She burst through the trees, 3 hearts pumping hard, and surveyed the outer beach of the atoll. Had she not crossed over near the rafts? She ran over to the water's edge and saw a depression in the sand trailing back. Following it with her eyes, she saw the remains of the lean-to that had been over the orange raft. Her eyes darted to the ocean. No orange raft in sight, but there, slowly floating further out, was the last chance. She located the rock she had tied it to and saw the vine was still around the rock, but someone had cut through it. It was the old human. It had to be. Drown it. The others were just catching up as she dove into the water after the raft. Jacob watched Ina dive into the water as he spotted the last chance floating away in the distance. He knew Ina would be able to escape now, at least. He had been thinking the Naga would likely catch them even if they made it to the raft, so perhaps it was for the best. Everyone was covered in sweat, drenching their clothes and dripping off their chins. Heaving, breathing sounds dominated the group as everyone looked around, anxiety rising. It appears Nakamura and Shun have sabotaged us, said Lu, perhaps the only one that did not look surprised. They must have taken Matt with the raft. Jessica looked around. Brennan, are you here? Brennan! There was no answer. I knew I had a bad feeling about that, bro. What are those things? Marcia asked. Those are the Naga. They are likely about to attack us because you guys used their pools, said Jacob. But it was just an honest mistake. We didn't know, said Marcia. Our only chance may be to fight. Grab anything you can quick, then get behind us. Manu, Lu, on me. And let me do the talking. Jacob heard a high-pitched trill from the water and turned to see Ina towing the raft back towards the beach. Look, Ina's grabbing the raft. We hold out until she gets here. When she gets close, the ladies go first. And then the Naga burst through the tree line. Jacob had forgotten how tall they were up close. They were bigger and bulkier than even Manu. There was 6 of them, and unfortunately, one of them he recognized. Except now, where his right arm had been, was a charred stump. Sellers, and his forked tongue flicked out of a big smile as he spoke. I knew you humans couldn't resist breaking the covenant. The foolish Deep Watch seemed to think they could trust you. 3 of the Naga looked somewhat confused by what Celis said, but continued to approach with him. I just have to buy time, Jacob thought. Sellers, that was your name, wasn't it? Sorry about the misunderstanding earlier, but I was told we would have safe passage to leave, and that you wouldn't bother me about the sword. Jacob held out the sword. Every Naga eye jumped to it. One of the other Naga asked, Sellers, what is the meaning of this human's words? What covenant? It does not matter, shouted Celis. You smelled their stench on the tidal womb. Whatever covenant they had is broken. To let them live is to dishonor ourselves. Celis brandished a spear in one hand and charged. Jacob heard splashing behind him. He only hoped the women were getting onto the raft. Two of the Naga quickly followed Celis, while the other three paused. I'm sorry, guys. I tried. And then Celis's spear was darting in for his face, and Lou's walking stick slapped it wide. Jacob felt the adrenaline enter his body as he went to counterattack. He swung his sword awkwardly at Celis's torso, but Celis laughed as he swatted it away with his spear. As the weapons met, Jacob felt the force transfer into his hands and arms, and he nearly dropped the weapon. Jacob quickly added a second hand to the hilt, now wielding it two-handed. The spear flashed forward at his head again. He tried to get the sword up to block and just barely managed to divert the trajectory of the spear slightly, and the tip clipped his ear. As the spear retracted, it dragged along the edge of the sword, shaving off a segment of wood in a long peel. Target the spear. Buy time, he thought. Jacob slashed forward with the intent of drawing Celis's spear to parry. As soon as he did, Jacob immediately twisted the sword's edge toward it, and he watched as it cut through the spear like butter. The sharpened haft fell to the ground, leaving Celis briefly stunned and then scrambling to pick it up. A strange tone appeared in the background that none of the combatants noticed. Manu roared to his left, and he risked a glance. A Naga spear had completely impaled his calf, and he fell to one knee. He tried to stand on it, but it wouldn't bear his weight, and he staggered. The spear tip was returning for a killing blow as Jacob found himself burying his sword edge in the Naga's neck with a desperate slash. That it connected surprised even him as the Naga started to collapse. Begrant! No! And then Jacob felt metal piercing his left shoulder. He looked back at Celis's screaming in his face, pushing the broken spear deeper, and then Manu's wooden club slammed into Celis's face, knocking him over. As the three other Nagas decided to finally join the fight. One pulled Begrant's fallen form back. The other two stepped in toward Manu and Jacob. The strange tone was now louder, and a buzzing sound started to escalate around them. Suddenly, there were bees everywhere, giant ones, swarming the beach. Jacob realized the strange discordant tone was coming from them. They swarmed from behind the Naga, striking them first, but soon everyone was getting stung. Chaos erupted. Attack, my friends! Attack! An Eastern European accent shouted, Ow, not me! Then Jacob saw Brennan running past the Naga and into the water. Time to go, Captain! Jacob started waving his hands over his face and head, then turned and ran into the water. The raft was right there. He reached the side and tried to pull himself up, but his left arm wouldn't work right, and he started to fall back until other hands grabbed him and pulled him over. He heard a crackling zap sound come from behind him, and then Brennan started loudly humming a new harmonic tone, and the stinging abated. Then he was over the side and collapsed on the deck, breathing hard. He looked around. Everyone had made it, and the raft was starting to move back out into the water. Exhaling, he looked up and saw Ina standing over him, and she reached for him to pull him to his feet. He reached up to grab her hand, and then it was torn from his grasp as a net encased her, and she was torn off the boat into the shallows with a surprised Trill. "Ina!" Jacob shouted. He was immediately on his feet. He saw them reeling her onto the beach. "Turn the boat around!" He turned and looked at everyone. They were still breathing hard, looking at him. A few moments of silence. "If we go back, we'll all die," said Marcia. Jacob looked back at the beach. More Naga had appeared there. There were now more than a dozen. He saw Ina surrounded. This time, his arms weren't paralyzed. He looked at Manu and handed him his sword. "Throw this to the beach." Then Jacob dove over the side. "This is the exile. She looks human, but she only wishes she was." Celeste spat green acid at her. "She's Naga. What is she doing with the humans?" "She's tainted. She only was allowed to leave her exile because she swore a blood oath, but instead she chose to lead humans here. She wears their form even now. She's probably mating with them just like her mother." "No, that's not true," Ina shouted. "Traitor, human lover, blood corrupter. Even if you completed your blood oath, a disgusting hybrid like you would never be allowed back in Naga society." Celeste was smiling now that the others were joining in. He reached for her and grabbed her chin and forced her to look out to sea. "Look at the humans you love, leaving you behind without a second thought, left behind like the trash that you are. Not even the humans want you." Ina wanted to be strong, hated the idea of giving them the satisfaction of seeing her weak. But as she saw the raft sailing away, she broke. It wasn't that they had left her. It was that she had let a small part of herself believe that they might not. He's right. I don't belong anywhere. Tears started to run down her face. Manu wound back his arm and threw the tide sword. It spun end over end through the air and landed on the beach. Just as Jacob stepped out of the water. "I'm turning the raft around now," Manu said as he grabbed the sail from Marcia. "No arguments here," said a voice no one recognized. Everyone turned to look at the humanoid that had suddenly appeared on the deck, leaning against one of the table legs. Was he wearing a poncho? He was clearly part fish. Squid, maybe? He had one milky white eye with a vertical scar through it. The stranger continued, "I can save you, but I need to know who among you defiled the pools." Jacob staggered out of the water. His shoulder throbbed with pain and was still bleeding from where Celis's spear tip was still lodged. The desperate swim back had turned that arm completely useless. Still more arms than last time, he thought. He saw the tide sword point up in the sand in front of him. Good throw, Manu. He picked it up and staggered toward the group. It was only then he realized that all the Naga were staring at him. He saw Ina trapped, burned, and crying. He felt a cold anger swell within him. He held the tide sword towards them. Shame on you. He spoke calmly, like he was a disappointed father. He didn't notice the tide sword had started to glow. Sellers opened his mouth, but no words came out. She has done nothing to you, and you beat her? He tore through the Naga with his eyes, meeting them one by one. Because she dared to leave an unjust imprisonment that she did nothing to deserve other than be born? One of the Naga refused to meet his gaze and actually looked away. Even now, despite being abandoned, the only reason she is here is to try to earn back her place among you. And you beat her. Jacob looked at them with sincere confusion. How do you not feel shame? Then he looked at the sword with disgust. You all seem to care more about this sword than her. Let he who still feels they have honor take it. Jacob tossed the sword into the sand at their feet. No one did. Well said, a voice said from behind him. Are you sure you aren't Naga? Jacob turned and saw a male sepia Naga wearing a parka. He had one white, milky, scarred eye. He was carrying someone. The newcomer stepped forward past Jacob and dropped the corpse. It landed in two pieces, head and torso. It was Marcia. Oh, Jacob thought. I am Deruth, second blade of the Deep Watch. I have been sent by Tide Lord Absaloth to mark these humans for safe passage. A covenant has been made and will be honored. The exile has declared a blood oath and will not be interfered with again. He stepped forward and his parka fluttered, and then Ina was free. She started to stagger forward toward Jacob. This human, he gestured toward Marcia's corpse, was the only among them to defile the tidal womb, and I have taken her to account. He eyed the other Naga carefully. There will be no more violence here unless it is by my hand. You, he looked at Celis, you will be the one to carry Bergrant's body back to Nagara. Now. Celis, as though in a trance, moved to pick up the body of his friend. Then Deruth turned back towards Jacob. That doesn't belong to you. He rested his hand on the broken spear shaft protruding out of Jacob's shoulder, and suddenly it was gone, leaving a bleeding hole. Deruth held his palm over the hole, and Jacob felt something enter and move around inside his shoulder. After a few seconds, Deruth withdrew his hand, and the hole was closed. What the? Never in my life have I imagined a human could imbue a Tide armament. And he turned to Ina. There is no shame in keeping the company of this human. I wish you good luck on your quest. And then he was gone. Ina looked at Jacob with red-tinged eyes, her face covered in wet trails. Thank you. Jacob slowly shook his head. No, Ina. You saved everyone. We should be thanking you. Besides, Jacob gave a tired smile. I'm the captain. I'm the captain, and on my crew, no one